I thought we've been talking about the session's name is Inclusive L&D and Empowering Managers for a Diverse Future. And I think we've talked about so much leadership, self-motivated teams, self-sufficient teams. Who's going to build these? It has to be the manager. And hot off the press at Harappa, we've just put together a grand manager and workplace report that has left us with some very sobering, fascinating, but important insights. So I thought we'll talk about what I now call the greatest villain of the modern workplace, because that's what the managers have become, because people are leaving jobs because of managers, nothing's getting done because of managers, everybody's disengaged, but who's really thinking about the manager, right? And it is the toughest job in the world. I think it's difficult for us to pretend that managing people, motivating people, understanding them emotionally, yet not coming into their space of privacy, are all difficult things. So let me begin with our panelists by asking each one of you, and Raji, you could begin. What is your honest opinion, right? Not what you'll say. Imagine none of these people are here and you and I are chatting. What is your honest opinion about the quality of managerial talent in India, Inc.? Because how are we going to get anything done if we don't have the people who are actually going to do it?
Thank you, Shresi. And hi, everybody. Pleasure to be here. I understand that there have been lots of interesting sessions since the morning, and obviously there will be similar themes. So we are all very grateful that we have a full house. So thanks once again for that. So now to your question, and even before we speak about managerial talent or the quality of managerial talent or the expectations from managers, I just want to take a step back and think about every one of us as human beings and as employees of an organization. What has happened or what is happening? I think change is a constant, which is cliched, which we all know about. But the kind of change that we are seeing in the last few years, in the way we lead our lives, in the way we lead our finances, in the way we look at our surroundings, there has been a tectonic shift, is what I would think. So as an employee, before being a manager, as an employee, what am I dealing with? I'm dealing with multiple kinds of changes around, which let me just try and enumerate it. One is, we are in a workforce, and I'm talking about it from the perspective of workforce. We are in a workforce where the laws around employment, the laws around education, or the practices, not laws, the practices around employment, the practices around education, the practices around engagement have all shifted or have had to shift. So today, education is no longer around getting a degree. There is huge amount of opportunity for anybody to get education from multiple online courses. There is a lot of exposure, there's a lot of access. That's number one. The kind of employment, it's no longer a 9-to-6 loyalty-based employment. Gig economy is a reality. People are can take multiple jobs. And therefore, how does it affect engagement? And COVID has been a game changer. I'm sure that's a topic which has been done to death. How can we engage in an environment where the employee is no longer sitting right in front of you? So as a manager, I have to deal, or a manager has to deal with the environment, not just as a human being first and then having to deal with people who are supposedly reporting to them. So how do I deal with all these changes, and how do I bring about the changes that my organization is expecting of me as a manager? And how am I equipped to do that? I think it's a $1 million question, confusion, conundrum. So that's where I would like to start.
So you're essentially saying that the job of the manager has just become so much tougher
with
changing technology, changing ways of work, and changing aspirations, or many other things, changing levels of employment contract. Soumitra, let me ask you this same question first for you to tell us. We've all been bad managers. We've all had bad managers, right? And I think that's a truth that all of us to be honest about. Do you believe there is a realization in companies like yours and others that you've seen that this is the most critical cadre of focus for us? And how are we linking managerial quality to business performance? Because really the fact also is there are terrible managers who are good at business and they can get away with murder in many companies.
I think good point. I'll answer it in two parts. The first thing is that, yes, all of us HR professionals, at some point or another, we do a lot of analysis. We see our pyramid, resource pyramid. And we see the entry-level points, and we see the first-level managers, the mid-managers, and of course, the executive, senior leadership and executive leadership. And that's the backbone. Believe it or not, a lot of people, your business guys will say, you know, technology, et cetera, but that's the backbone. Capability of that level is actually giving you the competitive advantage. You know, you would have read that in textbooks while you were graduating from MBA schools, but that is the truth. So that's where the differentiation lies. And the differentiation is something that we HR guys build in terms of performance. We don't spray paint your HR dollars across the group, okay? You pick out, you differentiate performance, you differentiate, therefore, the learning and development initiatives that go on, okay? So, yes, we have toxic managers, but I think the realization is slowly dawning on most companies that we have to ensure that this level has to be, you know, contamination-free for everybody to perform like one unified force to get whatever business results that you had, okay? The second part that you asked about is about the context, okay? Are we providing the context to our managerial force, okay? So for example, okay, technology is a differentiator, okay? Today, organizations are not differentiating in terms of price and products. They're differentiating themselves in their ability to handle AI and technology, okay? The valuation of a brick and mortar versus a tech company is the ability for the company to leverage AI and other technology like RPA, AR, VR, all these kind of things, okay? So, is your managerial workforce aligned to that movement? Okay, in Reddington, we have a term which is called technology friction, okay, and that applies to each and every one of your companies too. How do we define technology friction? Technology friction is defined as the rate of technology innovation and the rate of technology adoption. That's going to be also the mantra for tomorrow in terms of how you are impacting your middle managers.
Great. Deepak, let's come to the individual. Are there toxic managers or are there just under-trained managers? And are we expecting too much from this cadre because they're supposed to keep in change with technological disruption. They're supposed to know what's happening in people's lives, in their team lives. They're supposed to cut budget but grow higher, right? So, you know, and if that is so true, and if we expect so much from them, how realistically do you think we can improve the managerial quality across Indian workplaces? And maybe what have you done, for example, to improve this?
So, you know, first, I just want to add to what my two colleagues have said here. But I just want to bring a humane side of this. I visualize a manager's face right here, a persona of a manager here, and there are 5, 6 hammers which are coming from all across. There is something which says you guys are not delivering, you guys don't have project management skills, you lack project management skills. Someone comes and says that these guys don't have empathy. There's cost pressure. I don't know how much of this poor guy will get abused at. That's a challenge, first of all, I would want to kind of bring. I mean, you need to, first of all, understand what is your definition of a manager in a company. I mean, starting from a team leader to a learning and development leader like me or anyone for that matter, a CHR of a company whom I report to, they do some amount of this work. But the definition, first of all, has to be very clear. And as you said, toxic managers, but I think that's all contextual to the situation within an organization. I wouldn't say, I mean, everyone at the end plays a role in a company and is either satisfied, dissatisfied, passionate, dispassionate. There are different, you know, emotions running for an individual and how much they're aligned to the organization. It all depends on that. But I think we should look at a manager from a very different perspective. We should look at manager as not as one single bucket of managers. I think we should look at managers as different roles that these individuals play and what is important for them. So that element of toxic is just a verbiage that we use, but I don't think so that's the right approach to looking at it. So I wouldn't use that word in this context at all.
Got it. Let me share some of the data that our report revealed yesterday. And this we went to 3,800 managers across India Inc., including early managers as well as seasoned managers, and then juxtaposed their data with people leaders and senior HR leaders and what their view on managers was. On training, because you know we spoke about, and as learning custodians for many of you as well, 79% of managers said that they want to be trained to succeed in this role, right? And the 3 skills that they said were the most critical for them to learn was time management, conflict management, and communicating upwards. Now, let me share another data point in the communicating upwards. The really interesting disconnect that we found when we surveyed senior HR leaders as opposed to senior business leaders, the definition of what makes an ideal manager, the attributes of an ideal manager, were completely differently seen by HR leaders and business leaders. So here, what is the poor manager supposed to do when even when business leaders and people leaders don't see eye to eye on who and what makes a good manager? And is that maybe at the heart of the inability to design great managerial programs? Because you know you will fight with business all the time for everything that you all do, right? So Raji, tell me, is that disconnect really at the heart of us not being able to impact managerial quality, this disconnect between business and HR?
It's interesting. I mean, and your research is really widespread and it covers a lot of people. So, I mean, it is obviously the truth. So I don't want to debate it in terms of saying, is that really the reason? But I think I want to pick up from what Deepak said in terms of who is a manager and what is the expectation of from a manager. Is a manager a people manager? Is a manager a project manager? Is a manager a general manager of many things? So what is it? I mean, I think the job description of the manager and the expectations, and I don't think it's specific to managers alone, as I would go back to the clarity around organizational expectations of every employee, and therefore organizational expectations of a manager, both from the perspective of technical expectations, what's the technical mastery or the functional expertise that a manager needs to display, that needs to be made clear. And secondly, if a manager also happens to be a people manager, then what is the expectation from that manager on managing the people? What's the outcome that's expected from that individual? I mean, how will that individual get alignment from the people if he or she is not clear? So I think clarity of expectations, again, I go back to my fundamental premise, whether it is a manager or non-manager. It's a human being, it's an employee, and therefore what is the clarity of expectation from that person is something that as an organization or as an industry, that's something that needs to be bedded down. And the moment we do that, and every organization has multiple systems to do it. We have performance management, goal setting, check-ins, and ongoing check-ins. But how do we measure the efficacy of it? And how do we measure the ongoing institutionalization of whether this expectation is well understood and well calibrated and well delivered? I think that's where I will kind of place it.
Is there clarity there?
Difficult to generalize. Difficult to generalize. It may be there in some pockets. It may not be there in some other pockets. Where there is no clarity, there is going to be obviously
Chaos.
chaos. Yeah, absolutely.
Samitra.
I'll be a little maverick on this.
Yes, please be.
Right, and I think we have got all of us to blame because we have never ever really understood the managerial community. They have come up, we have promoted them from individual contributors. They continue to do the same job. They continue to ride roughshod over the new individual contributors, okay? We have put in some programs into place, like a managerial excellence program and all that, okay? And we have tried to ring fence those people into a group of people who we think should be managing, like I said earlier, the entire competitive advantage of the company, okay? The time has come to actually, kind of take a deep look into this, all right? And as I said, the context is important, okay? The content, no, technology has democratized everything. So why should we put people into a classroom? Okay, the latest, all of you know, all of your senior HR people, the latest adage is that instead of taking the learner to the learning, get the learning to the learner, okay? And learning should be personalized. Everyone is asking today in my organization where I work, everybody is asking, why should I do this learning? Why should I take 10 minutes of my time and do this, okay? So you have to answer those questions, all right? I was just joking, today earlier, that even before people want to go to a learning program today, classroom program, there are only two things they want to ask. Where is the venue? 5-star hotel? Or by menu kya hai? 3, 4 non-veg to honi chahiye, right? So that kind of mindset, we have to move out from organizations, all right? And we have to shift the onus from an organization-led learning to a person-led learning, okay? And I think this is all got to do with how we make organizations or that community more empowered and more effective in managing. So they are responsible now for the personal and professional growth of the people that they are managing for competitive advantage.
Sharing a very quick data point from the report again, the 3 out of 10 HR leaders and 5 out of 10 business leaders were unhappy with the managers that they themselves had promoted within 18 months of the promotion. So I think this clarity of expectations as well as what each person is doing and what's happening are both relevant. Deepak, please respond. And then I also want you to start with, we have only 3 minutes, so 1 minute for each person. Imagine some visioning for all three of you. Imagine that the Prime Minister's office has tasked you with designing a learning program that will go to every manager across India. Which are the 3 skills that you will put in that learning program?
I wouldn't.
You wouldn't what?
I wouldn't
Take
put
up that mandate.
No, I wouldn't take just 3 skills that you want to define. See, because in my experience, from whatever I've seen as learning leaders, we try to generalize. And we try to take skills that these are the top 3 skills. World Economic Forum will publish a report. I'll pull up those 3 skills and just implement it across my organization. I don't think so that would make sense at all. I would still look at it. I mean, this is my personal experience, and a lot of us in the learning fraternity would agree that each one of us would have a program called First-Time Managers in our company. We would have a high-performing manager in our company. I'm sure these kind of programs do run in every organization. But what is the efficacy of it? Did anyone look at a year down the line, where did they stand? What is it they've gained out of it? I don't think so we question it. We try to generalize. I think we need to look at following a very adaptive approach to this. Adaptive learning approach, adaptive skilling approach. I would look at each manager. I would look at, I use this terminology, inverting the Kirkpatrick model to the reverse. I would start from the problem statement or what I need to solve for. And then I look at for each group, each role, what managers need. And then take a shot at what skills are needed for them. Some group might be involved in a change management. For them, change management would be a priority. For some, it would be an issue with negotiation skills. I would look at it. Some would have a coaching skill requirement. So I wouldn't pick up a top 3 skills at all.
Rajvi, next you and then Soumitra can close it for us because we're at 1 minute, 20 seconds. No 3 must-have skills for the Indian managerial DNA?
I would say one definitely is the person should be a continuous learner, and that's again my constant theme has been manager or no manager. You're a human being and an employee. So be open to continuous learning. And we were talking, I'll just take a 30 seconds, sorry, Soumitra. And we spoke about it yesterday. Look at the environment, even the simplest of things today that a manager has to do. Gone are the days when in a physical environment, if there is a performance conversation and if there is adverse feedback to be given, the manager can simply draw the employee into a room and do it. Today, if that has to be done in a virtual environment, because we're all working in virtual hybrid modes, how do you know that the person who's sitting on the other side is in a secure environment? I mean, does it even strike you as a manager? And are you expected to know that the person could have family members? And if you're going to have a very confrontational performance conversation, how is that going to resonate? How is the manager expected to know? And the manager will know if he or she is a continuous learner, and if the environment is able to provide that learning as a skill. And that doesn't necessarily need to be a technical learning or a managerial development functional learning or whatever it is. It has to be a continuous learning as a theme, and that will build on to change agility. That's my take.
Soumitra, your 3 skills. Your time's up. Our time's up, but please 3 skills.
Time's up. Again, I'll follow Deepak and Rajni. No 3 skills. I'm just looking at overall thing that all the managers at every level need computational skills, algorithmic skills, as I called it, with a deep understanding of human behavior. So that's how they design programs, that's how they deliver programs, and that's how they evaluate programs. Okay? This is the future mantra for tomorrow.
Great, thank you very much, everyone. And I try to get some answers from them. Sometimes I was successful, sometimes I'm not. But as a parting shot, make good managers, be good managers. And I think that's something that we can all commit to. Thank you, all of you.